Boy, oh boy, is it getting hot in Ann Arbor. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Thursday. It is getting steamy up there. The NCAA chartered a jet to get to Ann Arbor to start interviewing coaches. The coaches are hitting the road for recruiting, scheduled for the bye week. But, you know, as these stories are coming out, as the news is coming, as they're coming through the hard drives, as they start these interviews, it is going to get a lot darker in Ann Arbor over the next few weeks. So we're going to get into that. What are the projected penalties? I think this is unprecedented. This is the biggest cheating scandal in the history of college football. So it's going to be very interesting to see how heavy-handed the Big Ten is, how much Michigan goes to get ahead of the posse, and what the NCAA does, because they're already there, and normally they move at a snail's pace. So it's going to be interesting to see what they get done. With that being said, as always, we appreciate all of you guys tuning in. If you enjoy this content, please click that like button. That thumbs up is huge for us. Also, click the subscribe button. We've got a lot of new subscribers. Appreciate all of you. And also, click that alert bell. We're going about 7 o'clock every night. Leading into Wisconsin week, the Buckeyes have a huge one at Camp Randall, but this Michigan thing is just absolutely juicy and is absolutely crazy what is going on in Ann Arbor. And I'd be very nervous if I was Jim Harbaugh personally. If you guys want the best coverage of this, all this going on, BuckeyeScoop.com is your home. I'm telling you, it is the most active I've ever seen the site. Our activity is just through the roof. We appreciate all of you guys that are on there, hitting refresh nonstop, because there is breaking news seemingly every 15 minutes. So join BuckeyeScoop.com for the #1 Ohio State football insider experience. That being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevadabuck, oh man, death penalty. I mean, haven't seen it in a while. Penn State got smacked pretty hard in 2012. SMU got it. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, that's a rumor. I mean, these guys, this cheating and helping other teams cheat and trying to, shape the playoff. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a legitimate consideration that we got to start talking about now, because, while the death penalty has only been used 5 times by the NCAA, and you look at their obviously notably SMU. I think you had Moore Park in tennis and some other ones, and in soccer where they're using illegal players. Everything usually revolved around player benefit, recruitment. There's never been a scandal that involved on-field advantage to not only the team that's involved, but that they were actively trying to help other teams in an effort to shape the complexion of the playoff. So, we're in completely new ground here in terms of what Michigan has done. And I think for Michigan right now, I think, when you look at the what would be the characteristics of a death penalty case, it would be, obviously, serious level 1 types of violations. It'd be repeat offender. It'd be someone who was not held in high esteem by the NCAA. And let me tell you what, the NCAA hates Jim Harbaugh. They hate Jim Harbaugh. I mean, they actually came out with a comment when he made his famous kind of, oh, it's just about a cheeseburger. And they came out and said, no, it wasn't just about a cheeseburger. So he's already on the list right now, kind of thumbing his nose at the NCAA. And now this comes in the biggest scandal. I mean, you said the biggest scandal in college football. I think it's the biggest scandal in sport. I mean, short of referee bribing or some of the big, point shaving scandals that you had with the Russian mafia with, FIFA officials and soccer and stuff like that. This is the biggest one in American sports without question. This is the biggest scandal without question. And the fact that they were actually, going to South Carolina and giving them the signals for Tennessee and doing that. And Beamer, Beamer had already been to get fined and big suspension for taking this stuff, and the former Wake Forest coach. I mean, this happened, and so it's a crazy story. But I think right now, we've got to be having legitimate, sober conversations about, does this merit the death penalty for Michigan? And I think it does. I think it does merit the death penalty. And I wouldn't have said that 10 days ago before all the scope of this started unfolding. But I think once you start realizing that it's going beyond just competitive imbalance in their games, but competitive imbalance in other games, I think it's got to be on the table.
Yeah, and you also have the FBI raiding the offices. The Matt Weiss thing is truly bizarre. What do you think his role is in all this? I know that they're not evidently related, but the FBI raiding the office, him getting fired for computer access crimes, and then you have this massive, iceberg that the Michigan Titanic just hit. It seems like there's got to be some crossover somewhere. They're claiming there isn't, but what is your thought on the Matt Weiss? Because I just feel like something fishy is going on with him. He basically disappeared from the earth. Normally, no matter how bad you are or heinous you are or whatever, if you're an offensive coordinator at a place like Michigan where you had a dominating year last year and for some reason you randomly just get fired, you land somewhere. Like you'll be an analyst for Alabama or the Atlanta Falcons or the Chicago Bears or somewhere. Like when Tom Herman got fired by the Texas Longhorns, he ended up as an analyst for the Chicago Bears for a year. So it's like, you stay in the game. You don't necessarily need to get paid that much that year because he's probably making $1.5 million, $1.75 million if he's Michigan's OC. But he just disappeared from Earth. No one's heard or seen anything from this guy. How do you feel that is tied to the whole deal that's going on with Connor Stallions?
Well, I had a person kind of explain it to me this way, and I think this made a lot of sense. They were like, look, the initial thing with Weiss is not involved sign stealing. That's not why he got fired. So that issue there's no nexus between that and why he was fired. Having said that, it's a reasonable inference to draw that he was unhappy for being fired from his $1.5 million, $1.7 million, $1.8 million job, and basically disgraced by Michigan in terms of the way that they handled it. And would it be conceivable then that if you're Matt Weiss, you're sitting at home in Ann Arbor or wherever you are right now, and you're like, man, those guys really screwed me. I'm going to give this information on the sign stealing stuff to my defense attorneys who have access to all my stuff, my computers, my tablets, all my information, and they can be the third party that passes it on to the NCAA. Because you ever wonder, like, how did this third party get all this information? Yeah. What do they do? Hack the computers? Like this isn't Mission Impossible where they put on some suit and jumped down in there and went through the fans and hacked the thing while the stuff going. It was probably his defense attorneys who would have access to all that work product. They give it to him, and then they go pass it on to the NCAA. And, whatever the reason, vindictive, to take heat off the client, whatever it is, to distract, to play hide the monkey, whatever knows. But that's what was explained to me, and I thought, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. So is there a connection? Not the way people might think that there's a connection, but ultimately life's a circle, and it might have come right back around on them.
Yeah, and I think that, when you're a guy like Matt Weiss, he knows the inner workings of whatever drive they use for Michigan football. Like at Ohio State, they call it the Y drive. And when I was a graduate assistant, I was on the Y drive all day, and he probably knew exactly where there was uploaded videos of the signals that the coaches could study and the little tip sheets that say this is what the signals are. And we're going to get into that in a second. But I think that you need a guy who knows where to look, like where the bodies are buried. Because I think if you just hand that over to an attorney or a forensic thing, it would cost millions to go through the entire drive because the drives were usually enormous. But if you know exactly what folder to look to, you could find it in a minute. So I think that he probably pointed them and said, hey, by the way, I know that they're throwing me under the bus and they're, there's all the, computer crimes, which, sounds like, child pornography or whatever heinous crime it was that he got fired and dragged for. I think that there's a real shot that this guy said, I never got my day in court, so I'm going to bring all you guys down with me, and I'm going to point to the stuff you guys were doing. And again, these companies, if they know right where to look, it's not real hard. You don't need to do some massive audit of every single file and every single letter and Excel spreadsheet and every single whatever. If you know right where to look, it'd take you about 5 minutes to get a pretty compelling thing. And I think that it seems like that's what happened. Some of the other stuff going on, again, there's been a lot. It seems like every hour there's new stuff coming on. TCU, this broke shortly ago. This is on Yahoo. TCU's coaches learned from other staffs about Michigan's elaborate science. Because again, when you do this kind of stuff, coaches talk across staffs across the country. There's friends on other staffs. Again, we're going to get into that with a tip sheet that we got, that Zach Smith got. And literally it talks about Keenan Bailey's thing, but they changed their signs. They used dummy signs to trick the Wolverines. TCU obviously ran through Michigan. So again, I think sometimes it's, like sign stealing it's great if you're on point and you've got it nailed, but if they switch it up on you and all of a sudden you're calling plays off of false signs, like you're going to get scorched, And again, I've literally sat in that seat where I missed one and we called the wrong play. It was not pretty, and I got ripped pretty good by the boss man. But, if you can pick them all up, it's good. But your thoughts on this, Nevada? Again, do you think that part of the reason why TCU's blowout was so massive was because Michigan, again, I think if you get that pattern where you can only function based on, having the stolen answers, and then all of a sudden you don't have the answers anymore, it can kind of cripple you. But your thoughts on this?
Well, look, we've all watched enough football to know, like, games fall into a pattern. Games, games, they follow a regular cadence. They have a certain feel to them. And when something's wonky, you could just tell that it's wonky. And for the TCU game, that felt completely different than other Michigan games. And let's take a step back now. Michigan, from an analytics standpoint, Michigan has been outperforming the spread, which is Vegas's kind of expectations of the game, where they set a line in an effort to try to balance the action. That's the basic premise of a point spread. Michigan has been outperforming the spread at a rate 300% higher than they've ever done before, at all coinciding with the time that they started stealing signs. Specifically, they've been outperforming the second half spread at an even higher rate, higher than any other team in college football, any other team in college football over the past 14 years. So you have to ask yourself what's going on. And, what I'm being told is that their sign stealing was happening not only in advance on the sign stealing, but that there was a real-time aspect to it, and that there was people communicating the signs from the sideline into the locker room, or to some other premises where guys were analyzing the information, and then that's why in the second half they'd even have a more refined look about how that could happen. Maybe you can talk about the inner workings of how the physical plant at the facilities works. How could a real-time sign stealing operation work, and how would that benefit a team?
Well, I just think that, that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, well, if they're going to scout 8 Ohio State games, why would they not do the game that they're playing right now? Now, people say, well, that's impossible, preposterous. How could you do that? Well, I'm like, well, you've got, like 50 guys on staff. You've got all these media people that have cameras that are running around, videoing everything, getting audio of everything. If you just so happen to have a guy or somebody who is trained to look at the signalers, get video of it, clip it, drive over drive, maybe have it work in tandem, have one guy do offense, one guy do defense, upload it. Again, if you have the media access to the Wi-Fi, you'll have good, strong Wi-Fi, send it back to the locker room, have a couple gremlins in there decoding it. Like, you could absolutely do it. And then, like, you're getting like real time. Okay, who's the live guy? Who's the live signaler? Is it Justin Fry? Is it Mike Salini? Is it the third guy? Again, that's something that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, well, if they're going to do it all the games prior, and again, I know that the Stallions dude is like, he's there looking at the signals live, but just to double and triple check, why not video them live there and send it to the locker room? Because again, if you've got a good 5G Wi-Fi hotspot that's independent of what they have at the stadium, because the stadium Wi-Fi is trash, or you have the media access code, which is actually a really strong Wi-Fi signal that's only for the media, you could easily upload that, send it to the locker room, put it into an iPad, break it all down with the film that's being uploaded, because the film gets uploaded literally like drive over drive from the cameras that are taken up top. Because as soon as the game's over, the coaches have the films on the iPad. So there's no reason that, like, as the drives happen, the film's not getting uploaded simultaneously, and you couldn't splice that together with signals in real time. Again, It's sophisticated, but it's not that sophisticated. And it's something that, if you're going to go through all the effort and you're going to spend all the money and you're going to get all these away games, you're going to tape all those signals, like, why not tape them in real time? Because again, me and you have had an unbelievable handle on Ohio State football the last 2 years. We've nailed pretty much every game. Even the Georgia game, we had that nailed. We had the Michigan game. The Michigan game was the one outlier where I didn't see us getting absolutely destroyed at home. I was like, we got all that. We have all that revenge factor. We've got the number 2 pick in the draft at quarterback. Who's I thought we had a huge advantage at quarterback. Our offensive line was really good. They didn't have Aiden Hutchinson. And we're at home. A lot of those guys senior days. And in that second half, it just didn't make any sense how we just kept getting, we gave up, I don't know how many long plays we gave up all year, but we gave up, 70-yard run after 70-yard run where it was like, man, they are in the perfect call there where there's nobody home. They make one guy miss and they're off to the races. And it just didn't make any sense. So, again, could you do that in real time? Yeah, absolutely. And when I put it past this guy, if this all comes out and they say, oh, he was also breaking the signals in real time, with video. Honestly, in real time video, that'd be the easiest thing to do because you've got these teams all Ohio State has a whole digital protection team that's got, they're filming the, running out of the tunnel and walking around on the sideline. And they got microphones and then there's also 100 media guys down in the end zone with their big extendo cameras. And I remember I was in a meeting with Tress. We were in a staff meeting, and somebody sent us a photo of his play call sheet. And this was from an end zone shot, and it was with an extended, one of those giant sport lenses. And it was crystal clear. You could read his entire play sheet. And it was from him just standing on the sideline with it, he's reading it like a the menu type thing. And the guy zoomed in and took a perfect shot of everything. And he sent it to Trust. And he's like, hey, you might, and he said, look, I'm a big fan. I just think you should cover this up, or you should put a folder over it or something. So when you're walking around, someone nefarious couldn't get your play sheet. And again, I don't know what you can do with a play sheet. I know you can do signals, but getting a play sheet is not really a big deal because unless you know the code to what the plays are going to be, it doesn't really do anything. But that was just my first thought, just because I'm like, if they're going to go through all this effort, why would they not do it in real time at the game when when the game's being played is when it really matters. And if you can crack the code in game, with something more sophisticated than being up in the box with binoculars and a little pad and pen, might as well do it. Because honestly, when you see all the stuff that they did leading up to the game and how obsessed they were with beating Ohio State, why would they not do it in real time? Your thoughts on that?
I think it absolutely happened. I think that's, I think this is probably a good segue into the dreaded play sheet or the dreaded signal sheet that that courtesy of Zach Smith that he had from the 2018 game. I don't know if we're going to have a chance to put that up.
Yeah, we'll put that up now. I just want to knock a couple super chats out real quick. Spook Jr., appreciate you. With social media being what it is today, how difficult will it be for Coach Jay to keep the team focused on Wisconsin? Your thoughts on that, Nevada, and then I'll take a crack at it.
Dave's really good. Ohio State's been able to pretty much steer clear of this stuff. And, this has been an interesting week. We're back to full strength completely. Emeka, Trey, Denzel, all back, had good weeks of practice, solid weeks of practice, fully expected to play on Saturday. Day, we can talk about Ryan Day, and certainly, he has his deficiencies as a coach. But one thing he's been able to do is he's been able to, avoid kind of the big letdown types of situations and, the inexplicable losses. And they've been on it. They've been pushing the guys since Sunday about, staying focused, being ready for this game. And I think it's been a real solid week of practice. I think they feel like they've got a really solid, good game plan. And I don't think this noise is really getting to them too much. If I was a Michigan player, I'd be like, wow, distraction city. But for Ohio State, I think they've been able to steer clear of that. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I just think the leadership at Ohio State, they've got a lot of veterans on that team. And it doesn't matter. Michigan does not matter at all right now. All that matters is Wisconsin. Those guys know it. Those guys are it's they've come too far. Everything is in front of them at this point. They're not going to care about Michigan or hyperbole or their moms and dads and everyone asking them about, what do you think about Michigan? If I'm Cade Stover, I'm Tommy Eichenberg, I'm one of those captains. I'm saying, look, We don't give an F about Michigan at this point. All we care about is Wisconsin. Michigan doesn't matter. They get hit by a nuclear bomb tomorrow. They don't matter. I mean, NCAA could be there for the next 4 weeks. They don't matter. All that matters is the Badgers. And again, the good thing about this is they're playing at Camp Randall, which is a nightmarish place to play at. And we've lost up there. And Luke Fickell, that storyline. And, you know, I don't think Wisconsin's particularly, this isn't like one of those vintage, fantastic Wisconsin teams, but it's still Wisconsin. Like, Wisconsin's always an upper crust Big Ten team that you got to, you know, sharpen your sword and get ready for. This isn't Purdue. This isn't Indiana. This isn't Rutgers. This isn't the sludge. This is at the bottom of the Big Ten every year. This is a team that legitimately contests for the Big Ten West every year. They're a team that's formidable. They're a team that, you know, frankly, you got to get your mind right when you play these guys. And in that environment, it's this instant adrenaline, because there's nothing like playing at Camp Randall or Beaver Stadium in Penn State. So we're going to get into this play call sheet, courtesy of Menace to Sports, courtesy of Zach Smith. Zach Smith is a great friend of the Scoop. Appreciate you, my man. He had this on his show today. So this kind of gives you a little bit of a breakdown. So you can see Keenan Bailey's head right there. You know, it says, you know, Keenan Bailey located behind the line of scrimmage with the majority of the signalers. If you zoom this in a little bit, you can kind of see, it says, you know, this is so funny. They literally break down. There will be 2 signalers right here wearing different color shirts. Keenan is the taller one. I just say it's the ginger. You know, look for the ginger. The shirt has alternated color throughout the year, and you know, they believe that it's just a distractor. The color of the shirt doesn't mean anything. He's been in green 55% of the time. He's been in blue 41% of the time, and then he's been in yellow 4% of the time. But you know, they've got, you know, like different formations here. They've got, you know, that's what all these signals are. Formation, you know, some play call stuff. You know, I'm sure that this is a multiple sheet operation, but this gives you just a little feel in terms of what these guys were doing, you know, to kind of, to get an edge. You know, you can zoom in and, you know, it says like finger twirl means this, and overhead means run, and, you know, inside elbow up means under. So, I mean, you know, again, this was not like some, you know, fly by night operation. I mean, these guys studied this stuff. They studied these videos. They made it. Again, this was from 2018. So, I think I know how all this came about. Cause I mean, if you do the math, what was 2018? That was Urban's last year. You know, Keenan was on staff. He was a signaler. And then, you know, obviously Urban handed the whistle to Ryan Day. And who did Ryan Day bring in right away? Greg Madison and also Al Washington. Where did they come from? Michigan. So, you know, it's the math isn't super hard to see where some of this stuff comes from, because, you know, when you change teams as a coach, like if you go from Ohio State to Michigan, or Michigan to Ohio State, or Ohio State to wherever, like, you know, you have no allegiance to your old place, and you're going to spill the beans to your new boss, you know, especially when it's some, you know, crazy move like leaving Michigan to go to Ohio State, like Madison and Al Washington did, because, you know, Jim Harbaugh is not their homie anymore, and their job is to beat Jim Harbaugh. So they're going to say, hey, by the way, this is part of our signal stealing operation. So this is some of the stuff that we did against you guys. So make sure you change your signals up, change your signal, not just your signals, but your signalers. You know, don't make it Keenan Bailey every week, make it different guys. Maybe add another signaler, maybe add wristbands, maybe huddle. You know, it's kind of like that counterintelligence layer that you get when you get new staff people. Because again, like that's part of the benefit to bringing people in from outside, especially people that you've gone against, who've maybe had some success against you, is you can see kind of some of the stuff they did against you and kind of how they went about game planning for you. You know, again, that's, you know, we've hired a lot of guys from within, so you don't really get any of that extra layer. But, you know, like Kevin Wilson, who I think is one of the finest offensive minds in the history of college football, you know, he knew when he was at Indiana that, you know, when, you know, his defensive guys said, hey, you know, when they're signaling and the signals are like 75 different, you know, like this, it's a pass every time. And when it's like this, it's a run. So they knew when it was a long signal, it was a pass every time. And when Wilson showed up, first thing he said, hey guys, make all your signals long, even if it's a run, and make it something, you know, put a bunch of dummy hand motions on after your runs so that, you know, they all look the same length and it's not an easy tip, you know, and every team tips plays and there's tendencies and that kind of thing. But it's good to bring in a guy like Wilson who'd gone against you and say, hey guys, like you need to change that because it's really stupid because we can pick that up in about a millisecond. But your thoughts on this, Nevada? Like again, I think that this is interesting, and it's kind of just, it shows what you're up against when you're a college coach, man. You gotta be ready for all of it.
Well, it just shows the evolution of the sign stealing operation at Michigan. Obviously, they were doing it back in 2018, but they were kind of doing it. It's like an Apple One or something like that, and now we're on the Apple 15. They decided to crank it up and be like, hey, we're going to go from kind of the remedial version to let's actually go out and scout every game. Let's go out there and chart every thing. Let's have a guy in real time calling it out. So this isn't just a thing handed out to the guys and the coaches are having to look at it. Let's actually have our sign stealing guy right there on your shoulder looking at you. Let's have our real time analysts looking at things and trying to decipher what they're doing. I mean, they just took it up a notch. And when you think about what happened in 2018, I mean, they got shellacked by Myers. So from Jim Harbaugh, just get into the mind of Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's sitting there going, I just got shellacked. I'm 5-0. I've just been killed by this guy, and I gotta get somehow I gotta find an edge. And Stallions came and offered him an edge, and now as this thing's starting to unwind, the Michigan administration is kind of hunkered down, and they've got to try to figure out what to do about this burgeoning PR crisis. And let me throw one other thing in there. There's another thing that I picked up, and I'm pretty sure this is pretty good information. My information is that Jim Harbaugh has signed an extension to coach at Michigan. It's just unannounced. It has an unannounced extension. So that throws another dimension into this. While you're sure that I'm certain that there's got to be out clauses for NCAA violations and other things like that, and I'm sure that's would be there. But it does add another dimension to how do we move on a guy that we just have an unannounced multi-year extension sitting here on the copy machine ready to head out to the media. So I think there's a lot of dimensions to the damage control that's going on in Michigan land right now. And the fact that the NCAA was in there within a week, which is really hyper speed, never seen anything like that before, just shows you the severity with which they're treating this. And like I said, I think Harbaugh's in deep trouble. I think that program is in deep trouble. And the more that they try to poo-poo this and try to get put the spin out, oh, this is nothing. My favorite is that this is the rogue agent, the lone wolf.
No, oh no, oh no, oh no.
That he did this, and that he slipped the play calls into Harbaugh's gym bag while Jim was showering, and Jim had no idea. I have no idea where this came from. I didn't even know we were doing this.
No.
That's the next level of defense that they're going with is the lone wolf, bad apple. They're trying to paint him as like a crazy man with this Michigan manifesto. He's like the Unabomber. He's like the Ted Kaczynski, another Michigan man guy out there that they have of Michigan football. That obsessed with Michigan football, baking him cakes and brownies, and hey, coach, I can help you. I'll help you. And Harbaugh's like, oh no, and but where that falls apart is when they gave him the seat of honor right on Harbaugh's shoulder during the Ohio State Michigan game, or the defensive coordinator. Like, you don't give that to a whack-a-mole. You don't give that to some little, jackadoodle that's the low man on the totem pole. He was there for a reason, and the reason was because they were cheating, and he was the key to the cheating scandal, and he was the reason they were winning. So he was the reason they were outperforming Las Vegas. He's the reason they were doing so well in the second half. That's why he was in the seat of honor. That's why he had the golden chair on the sideline, and that's inescapable. And Michigan fans just have to deal with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, coaches, especially when you're a guy like Jim Harbaugh, who's been ultra successful, he's taken the team to the Super Bowl. I mean, he was great in the NFL. He's made Michigan formidable again. They're complete psychopaths. They're complete. They don't want anybody around them unless they are of the utmost important. They don't want anybody in their space. They don't want anybody intruding on their game day, because game day for guys like Urban Meyer, Jim Harbaugh is life and death. They do not want anyone in there, that's not of the utmost importance in their space talking to them, because they're in this kind of different universe where, you know, they know like winning is everything and they know that they have to perform and it's got to be at a high level and they don't want anybody interrupting that. So I've seen like Urban on game day, and if someone's talking to Urban, it better be something important, it better be something real. And I used to talk to him on the headset, and it was because, you know, if I cracked a play or, you know, we had to get something fixed, like, but I didn't talk unless it was something that for one, I was 1,000,000,000% sure on. And for two, I was locked in. Like I wasn't just, screwing around. Cause I mean, you're not trying to, rattle the cage of the wild bull, but so when this guy's down on the sideline, now mind you, I was up in the box with the headset on, sitting next to Tom Herman and Tim Hinton. But when you're down on the sideline and you're right in his path and he's listening to you, like you got something real important to say. We have another super chat. Guys, if you have questions, super chats are automatically answered. So we appreciate you guys, as always, bringing these. Nick Smith, my man, appreciate you. You guys don't think what's going on in Michigan, it doesn't motivate Ohio State. They kind of messed with Stroud's Heisman hopes in our petition to playoff last year. We could have had TCU round one. Nevada, do you think that this is motivating Ohio State right now?
Well, I think it kind of, I don't know if it motivates. I think if they don't need any more motivation to beat Michigan, they don't need any more motivation to win their games. I think, when you see some of the comments, though, when I saw Stroud's comments on it today, and it was like, yeah, I don't care, I'm at Houston. And I was just like, okay, CJ, would have liked to see something a little better, but I don't think CJ's ever, his play's been terrific in the NFL, but his public comments have always been kind of head scratching. But I think that you've got plenty of motivation as an Ohio State player to turn around these losses. I think the what's in front of you. You've got Big Ten championship, your Big Ten championship game, NCAA college football playoff, NCAA championship. It's all there. I don't think they need any more motivation in terms of doing it. But I do think this is a giant distraction for Michigan. I mean, how can it not be? I mean, if you believe in the concept of distractions, this is a distraction. This is a distraction, and this is not. I mean, when you think about what the Houston Astros put up with right now, every single game,
everywhere they go, everywhere they go.
Yep. They get called cheaters, and like Altuve, no matter how many home runs he hits, and no matter how clutch he is, will always be thought of as the cheater. And that stuff matters, and that's not going to go away. And the only way, I mean, that was after getting hammered with penalties and with everything else by Major League Baseball. And I mean, I think for the Big Ten, the Big Ten's kind of at an inflection point too. What do you do about a scandal that you talk about? Who's going to dole out the punishment? Well, it's the commissioner of the Big Ten, but he's answerable to the other. 13 of the presidents are absolutely livid about what's going on right there. And the more that this kind of comes out, they're not going to be sitting there going, oh, let's give mercy to Michigan on this thing. No. They want to make an example out of Michigan. They don't care. They something that affects the integrity of the games and possibly the integrity of games in other conferences and affects the entire playoff process. I mean, come on, like there's not going to be any mercy for these guys. And I think there's multiple ways this is going to end badly for Michigan. It's just a question of how quickly they get in front of it, how quickly that they do damage control and try to throw somebody up, because they're going to have to throw somebody up more than Stalions. Stalions is already done. Like I said, they've already painted him as the rogue, idiot, crazy guy that was kind of stalking them and running around. But they're going to have to offer up somebody more significant than that because the Stalions ain't going to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Keith, thank you for the super chat. Real question: will anything happen this year? Will the Big Ten step in, or will this wait for 3 months from now? I think they have to step in. I mean, don't they? I mean, if Michigan, if they run the table, win the Big Ten championship, and then all this comes out, this whole avalanche of stuff comes out, and it gets worse. Like, I think that's a bigger black eye. And again. My question to you is, Nevada, do you think something happens this year? And who does it? Does Michigan self-impose? Is it the NCAA? Is it the Big Ten? That's kind of the question I'm dying to ask you.
Well, it won't be the NCAA. They don't move that fast. They just can't. Their process doesn't allow them to move that fast. I am of the opinion that it'll come from Michigan, helping technician is of the opinion that it'll come for the Big Ten. But I mean, think about it. Just think about it on a basic level. Say, we've all seen things like in high schools where high schools played a kid and he was an ineligible player. They had an ineligible player on your roster.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do? They make you forfeit all those games, right?
Yep.
We've seen that, all across the country. Really good teams have to forfeit 9 games because they had a player from out of district or a player that wasn't academic or whatever the story is. We've seen it 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it can be deemed pretty credibly by the Big Ten that Michigan was using illegal aids to win all these games that they've played up until now. And they could be made to forfeit. And if they're made to forfeit, I don't know how they can participate in the Big Ten championship. They certainly can't, participate in the college football playoff or be eligible. I think that is a possible scenario because they were cheating. I mean, they were cheating. They know they were cheating. It's widespread. It's the biggest cheating scandal in the history of college football. And do we think that provided an edge? Of course, it provided an edge. They went from awful to unbeatable. And that just doesn't happen in college football today. And it doesn't happen in any sport. Certainly doesn't happen in college football. And so I think that, the Big Ten and the new commissioner is going to want to kind of, lay out his path and, kind of make his mark. I think they can be made to vacate wins this year for, illegal game day. And that could knock them out.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a photo, again, like, it's funny, the sleuths online, they found this photo of Mike Hart. He's got, when you're coaching, you get like your game day packet of the play call sheet. You get the, like, it's like a little packet of all the plays and whatever, and a play sheet. It's like kind of the menu that you always see. And it's like in his packet, I mean, he's got that signal list. It's the same list that has been floating around the internet where it's like they've got their signals and this is what the signals look like, and here you go. So I mean, like, this is Mike Hart holding it in a game. This is from an ESPN copy. So again, like, you'd assume that every coach got this signal sheet, and again, they weren't smart enough to hold it because, like, there's the photos of Sharon Moore holding one, and obviously this is all from Stallions, and then Zach gets one, and it just shows how widespread it was because every coach had it. This wasn't like some one guy operation and plausible deniability across the board. This is in the coaches pack. So again, like, the internet is undefeated. People can rewatch this stuff and find like these little minuscule clues, and you're like, wow, I mean, these guys all know. And again, like, this is the photo, and I've used this as the thumbnail a couple times, but he's right there picking the signs. He's got his notebook. He's got his marker ready to adjust his notes on, okay, this is the live signaler, this is the dummy signaler, okay, this is a new signal. And honestly, the guy in the green shirt, it looks like he's doing the same thing. I mean, he's got, they're looking in the same spot. So, I mean, this wasn't like it was just a one-man operation. This is a sophisticated, coordinated deal. And again, like, why would they not do it in game? If they're going to go to 8 Ohio State games, like, why would you not, when you can bring a whole band of people, you can bring all these coaches, there's like modern support staffs in college football. It's like the most bloated thing in the universe. Like, there's like 40 coaches that like really don't do anything on game day. And they're like assistant high school coordinators, relations coordinators, and assistant to the assistant recruiting, intern. And I mean, so there's all these guys, student interns, like that don't have like big time roles on game day. I mean, we used to have guys on staff that like, they would chart stuff and they do little stuff, but like if you left them at home, it wouldn't like kill you. Like we had like 10 interns on our team when I coached, and we would only travel 2 of them. So the other guys would sometimes load up in a car and go, but if we wanted to do something like this, you could say, hey, go scout Michigan, or go scout Notre Dame, or go scout whatever. So, not everybody makes the trip on the road games. But if it's a game like this, and you're a Michigan intern, those kids, I'm sure, all loaded up in the car and came on down, and you can say, hey, okay, let's pick these signals today. And you guys sit in the locker room and get on the iPad, and I'll FaceTime you the signals in real time. Like, it wouldn't be that hard to do, and it seems like why would you not do it in real time if you're doing all of this in you know, eight weeks of game planning, and then you get to the real game and you can pick it. Because again, like the second half stuff is just it's just too damning to me when I see how good they get in the second half versus the first half. Your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, look, they have tape of Stallion saying to Harbaugh after looking over the thing, run the same play again. Like, you know, again, go back to our previous conversation. Who would have the audacity to say that to Jim Harbaugh in the middle of the? I mean, to make that particular suggestion, you better be somebody that matters, man. You better be so. I mean, you know how crazy it is on those headsets and
Oh,
the
yeah.
screaming on the sidelines. I mean, it's absolute mayhem. And the fact that you've got this guy, the $55,000 a year employee, is making the suggestions to to $10 million
$10
a year
million.
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, run the same play again. Wow, man, that guy's kind of matters, man. He certainly seems to be integral to what you're doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, like you just see sideline, he's right there, man. And I mean, it's not, and these guys that are making 10 million, they're not trying to hear anything from a $55,000 intern very often. Again, the pace of this, and again, like I just keep going back to these screenshots because they're just so, like, I mean, coordinator calling the play, he's right there, like every time. Like when plays are going in, man, he's right there. But yeah, what do you think the next step is, Nevada? The NCAA is on campus. That raises a massive eyebrow, given the fact that the NCAA normally moves at the speed of like a tugboat or a glacier, and they're already there. So I think the clouds are forming above Schembechler Hall right now. I think it's very dark for the Wolverines. But what are your next thoughts as to what is going to be going on with the investigation?
Well, what's been interesting is, today you had the local reporter, Michigan reporter, came out and said, "Oh, none of the Michigan coaches have been interviewed." And then you had the national Nicole Auerbach come in, "Oh no, the Michigan coaches have been interviewed." And then you had the local On3 website guy go, "Oh, Michigan's been cleared. It's great. We're in the clear. It's great. It's over. It's over." And it's like, it's just so funny to me watching the spin of this thing. And I think what you're going to see is you're just going to see every day there's going to be more and more stories coming out about the scope. I think the scope of this thing is what really is going to, even take the most ardent Michigan fan. And, I listened to Rich Eisen today, which, boy, I used to take him seriously when I'd watch him on like ESPN and stuff. I
Oh
mean,
God.
what a buffoon. I mean, what happened
Yeah.
to these guys? What happened to Keith Olbermann? What happened to Eisen? These
Oh
guys
God.
they're not capable of any rational thought. And he's talking about, Michigan, we didn't need to cheat to win. No, you did need to cheat to win. The only time you started to win was when you started to cheat. So it's like, it's not hard to make the connection right there, guy. You didn't
Oh.
win. You weren't performing against the spread. You weren't performing against the rival. Then you decided to cheat. And then all of a sudden now you've gotten better. Come on, Occam's razor, dude. But I
Yeah.
think every day is going to be a new disclosure about the scope of this thing. And as the scope expands to more teams, as it expands beyond the big, as it expands, and when people really get an idea in these other conferences about how Michigan was trying to alter their races and their
Yeah.
conferences
Yeah.
in an effort to affect the makeup of the college football playoff and their particular path to the championship, I think people are going to be really mad. I think people are going to go, "I can't believe that was happening." Because again, everybody helps other teams out where they have friends and they can talk about plays or they can talk about, techniques or what we did or that stuff goes on. But sharing this information that was gathered illegally in direct violation of NCAA rules that's been on the books for decades, and they share that information, and these other teams are lapping it up in an effort to try to beat these teams. I think it's going to tick off a lot of people, and I think that the furor on this is not going to get less. It's going to get more. There's no way that they're going to just sweep this under the rug, throw Stallions under the bus, and people are going to forget about this because every time Michigan gets mentioned now for the college football playoff, for the Big Ten championship, for the Ohio State Michigan game, for the potential of J.J. McCarthy and the Heisman Trophy, it's going to come right back up again. And it's going to be over and over and over and over again. And I think the Michigan administration is going to get tired of the body blows. and eventually just have to take some sort of preemptive action when it becomes so obvious that they have no other path, when they're just backed into the corner and
Yeah.
completely bloodied and bruised. That's when they'll have to make a move.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it last night. I've seen this movie before. I've seen it before. I know how these schools react. I know that they've got these big PR firms, and the only way to stop the bleeding and the beat downs every day by the national media, by the Twitter sphere, by social media, by everything, is cut the head off the snake. And that's why I think that Jim Harbaugh's done. He's finished. I think that there's going to be no survivors left. It's going to be a whole new staff next year. But, I think it's going to be real interesting. Well, any final thoughts, Nevada? We're going to transition. We got the bank coming on here shortly. Any final thoughts, Nevada?
I know, big game coming up against Wisconsin, but I can't get enough of this Michigan stuff. I am glued to it. I've got the phones working, talking to a lot of different people, and there's absolutely more to come in the next 48 hours, so stay tuned.
Perfect. Well, we're going to bring the bank on here. Bill the Bank Greene is joining us now. Bank, we are live. We have got a huge audience on right now. How are you feeling about our boys up in Michigan?
Well, short term, I think they're fine. Long term, I think they're dead. If that makes any sense. I mean,
I think you're dead on. I think that you think short term this season they're going to be unscathed. They could play for the playoffs, play for the title.
Yeah, they haven't gotten their notice of allegation yet from the NCAA. When they get that notice of allegation, they have 90 days to respond after they get it. If they get it tomorrow, they don't have to respond until close to February 1st. And then when they respond, the NCAA then is going to take, how long do they take to respond to what you tell them? That could take the Kansas basketball thing, which they were dead to right nail. That took 6 years to be finalized. So, Harbaugh could be old and gray and dead before they adjudicate this thing. I think this year, I don't think you're going to see anything from the Big Ten. And the NCAA, by their bylaws, can't do anything. They have to give you 90 days to respond to anything you hand them. So I don't think there's any chance you hear anything this year. I mean, the best thing for Ohio State is to beat them. Novel approach, right?
Oh, I'm telling you, winning is a great deodorant. Because if Harbaugh runs the table and wins the national championship this year, that'll be a spectacle unlike anything we've ever seen in our entire lives. So
it'll trump the Cam Newton thing.
Oh.
And even there, Auburn didn't get stripped of that title. They're the national champions. Kansas basketball's got a national title from a couple of years ago. So, we'll see what happens. The NCAA has a lot less power today than they had 10, 15 years ago, 5 years ago. So, we'll see. This thing's got a long way to go. I don't think people that are looking for Harbaugh to be fired before Michigan plays Purdue a week from Saturday, I think they're out of their minds. I think Michigan will circle the wagons and delay, deny, fight.
I think they're going to be galvanized big time. Going forward. That's the one thing.
The administration, I think, is going to dig their heels in and fight and scrap and kick. And maybe now is the time that you can beat the NCAA at their game. I don't know. They're not as powerful today as when, they had a stretch there in about a 3-month period where they ran Jim Tressel, Pete Carroll, and Chip Kelly out of the college game. I don't know that they're that powerful today to pull that off again.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's really going to be interesting, but Ohio State can make this a lot easier on everyone if they just beat them. Don't let the courts do your work for you. Don't let the NCAA lawyers do the work for you. Go beat them.
I agree. We got a super chat here. You do not think the hammer could drop. It'll be interesting to see how these next.
Oh, I do think the hammer will. Now, wait a minute. I think the hammer will absolutely drop on Michigan, but not in the next couple of weeks. It won't affect the 2023 season. They get 90 days to respond. they don't, that'll, if they get it tonight at midnight, that'll take them up almost to February till Michigan gets to respond. And then the NCAA will, oh my God, how long it takes after you get the Michigan response. So no, nothing will happen this season. I know some people think like the Big Ten commissioner is going to whack Michigan. Like he's got a chance to get 2 teams in the playoffs. He's not going to whack one of them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, like you said, that's one of the flagships, man. Michigan's a flagship. Ohio State's a flagship. Like, if you bury,
they both can be in the playoffs really easily this year. That's what the Big Ten commissioner wants. He'll sort it all out next year. He doesn't need to sort it all out today or tomorrow. Plus, he doesn't have any evidence compared to what the NCAA has. So, if you're hoping that the NCAA or the Big Ten derails Michigan this year, I think you're dreaming. The best thing is for Ohio State to whip them. And don't think Penn State can't beat them. Who is this Michigan team beating that everybody thinks they're so great all of a sudden? I'm missing that. Penn State is not that bad of a team at all. And that Penn State-Michigan series has been home dominated for about the past decade. So Penn State can beat them. Ohio State can beat them. I mean, I don't know. People are talking about Michigan like this is the Pete Carroll's Southern Cal Trojans going 3-peat. That's not that kind of team. Don't crown them yet. A little early to be crowning this Michigan.
No, I think honestly, like Penn State in Beaver Stadium, that's a different animal. That's a different animal. Yeah, it's a different animal. I mean you got to go on the road. They're going to have their Chop Robinson back. I mean, that's going to be the great redemption for that team because they had playoff ambition and they win. Yeah, they're right back in the playoff mix. Yeah, exactly.
They still do have playoff ambitions. Penn State's good.
Yeah, I mean, if they run the table and they don't make the Big Ten championship because Ohio State beats Michigan, then they're in the playoffs. I mean, if their only loss is a loss in Columbus and Ohio State ends up beating Michigan and they're a top 2 team, like Penn State's right there at number 4.
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't like Ohio State beat them 42-3. No, it was a 10-6 game in the fourth quarter. So there's a lot of football left to be played before you put Michigan into the college football playoffs yet. They've played nobody yet, so let them get through Penn State, let them get through Ohio State and see where the chips fall. There's a lot of football to be played.
You're getting all these Wolverines love you, Bank. So Blue Wolverine just gave us a $10 super chat. Buy Bill a drink for being logical. Well, he doesn't drink, but I'll buy him a set of golf balls for that. So subscribe to BuckeyeScoop.com. We got we used to call you Gator Green. I'll call you Go Blue Bill.
Whatever.
Yeah. I know. So we got you got some great feedback from some coaches throughout the country that are at some big time programs, SEC Big Ten level programs. You got a lot of contacts. You wrote a nice column on BuckeyeScoop.com talking about the varying opinions about what Michigan did, how dumb they are, how unsophisticated it was, how ham-handed it was.
I mean, I don't think. There's no proof, but I don't think for a minute that Michigan is the first team to scout an opponent in person. No. Why you let this retard, the Stallion, organize it, take care of it, you know what I mean? Use his own Venmo to buy tickets. I mean, how stupid are they? That's what one coach said to me, like, how stupid are they? Why didn't you show them how to do it? You know how to do it. You got the prepaid debit card and you got the burner phone. It's not that hard. They're just laughing about how just ridiculous Michigan was and how they did this. So there's definitely a better way to do it. Do I think somebody in the SEC has ever, and you only need a 19-year-old girl to go there with her cell phone and tell her to point the camera at the placards. You don't need to send a staffer.
No.
And have him buy the tickets. Have him buy the tickets and Venmo his money. I mean, how stupid that was. There's a better way to do it than the way they did it. And when you look at what Michigan has risked, which is everything, and what was the reward? A lot of the stuff that they got in person, you can get off the All-22 film. You can get a lot of it off YouTube. off the TV feed. I think they really, I mean, it was a huge risk. The things they did for what their reward was, they didn't get this super secret info that nobody else could possibly have. It's out there.
Yeah.
You've seen y'all 22 before.
Oh, absolutely. All the time. I still watch it.
Yeah.
You know, and again, like if you're Billy, the young camera guy, and you don't know what you're doing, and you just pan the camera back up, you pull it back a little bit. I mean, you can put two cameras up in the on the sideline view, just pull it back a little bit, and boom, you got all the signals. Like it's not, I mean,
and that film would be easier to watch than a guy off the cell phone from the stands.
Oh, yeah. Of course, absolutely.
I mean, there's a better way to do it, a more efficient way to do it, a safer way to do it. You know, call someone from Auburn that worked under, those staffs 10 years ago. They'll tell you how to do it. You can't tell me that in the SEC, those schools don't do this all the time. But they probably have a 19-year-old girl using looks like she's playing on her phone doing it.
Yeah, or just get a photo credential and go down there and like video the sideline. Like, I mean, that's the easiest way to do it because you got a big camera. You're right there. You got the tripod. You can sit there and people. You can say, "Oh, I'm just taking video of Jim Harbaugh. I'm just taking video of Mike Hart or Sharon Moore," and you're getting everything. So it's like,
no one would question you.
Yeah, and those guys are making $35,000. They're destitute. They're poor. So I mean, you could literally just hey, a couple grand here. Take the sideline camera and send it to us, and I'll do it. I'll do it for you every week. I do it for you every week. So it's like
it'd be easy to find someone who would love to be on the sideline of a game. There's just a better way. Maybe better is not the right word, or there's a smarter way to cheat than how they cheated.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
They didn't read the SEC handbook. I promise you that on how to do it. This was like cheating by dummies. So we'll see. But like I say, in terms of punishment, I think Michigan is fine through the rest of this season, but I think they're dead going forward because Harbaugh's already tangled with the NCAA a couple of weeks ago. They've already accused him of lying to them, and they hate that worse than anything.
Nope.
You'd be better off like murdering your backup quarterback than you would be lying to the NCAA because you could tell them, hey, the guy screwed up the snap. He cost us our rivalry game. We lost our temper and we shot the kid. All right. We get it. But boy, when you lie to the NCAA, they hate that because they have no other recourse. They have no subpoena power. They can't hook you up to a lie detector test. So they hate when you lie to them and you get caught lying to them. Man, they're coming for you. And so Michigan this ain't going to go well for them. This year they're fine, but next year the NCAA is going to try to crack them and crack them hard. I really believe that. Just out of the vindictiveness of the NCAA when you lie to them.
Yeah. Do you think they fire hose the whole organization? Like, so the thing I tell people, I'm like, look, if they get rid of Harbaugh, like, how do you keep Sharon Moore and the DC who are just as complicit in the whole deal?
Yeah, you almost have to.
Like, you almost got to fire hose and get rid of everybody.
Probably because you'd have the Stallion who would be at the bottom of this whole thing, but Harbaugh's at the top. So doesn't it almost automatically get everybody in between?
Yeah. Because honestly, like if you said, Kirk, I have on good authority that Jim Harbaugh is going to the Vikings or the Bears, or because he interviewed with the Vikings and the Broncos and everyone else. And he's been trying to, I think he saw the tidal wave coming eventually. He's like, I better get out of Dodge because that DC went to the Ravens and the OC got fired. But I would have bet a lot of money that Sharon Moore would be the next head coach because he's been killing it as an O-line coach and an OC. And he seems like an easy guy to promote and keep the whole thing kind of.
Very highly thought of in the profession.
Yeah. Great recruiter, but he's complicit in it. So I don't know how you get to keep him. Like, I think that,
I think it's a total house cleaning deal, but we'll see. Maybe they beat them. Maybe Michigan takes them to court and, the NCAA is not as powerful as they used to be. It's going to be really a fun one to follow. I really think it is.
Do you think Harbaugh and his abrasiveness and his pretty, it's a frosty relationship with Ward Manuel, their AD. They are not that is not Gene Smith and Ryan Day or Gene Smith and Urban. I mean, they hate each other. And again, that's part of Jim Harbaugh's not really charm, but it's just kind of how he is everywhere he goes. Like he wears out people at San Francisco. He wears out people at Michigan. He's just a guy that doesn't have a long shelf life just because he's such a weird dude, and he's such a kind of an a-hole, and he doesn't care about anything. Like he wears his khakis to bed at night with the same polo every day and wears a hat inside, and he's a weird dude. Do you think that this gives people that hate Jim Harbaugh that are at Michigan ammunition to axe him? Or do you think they'll defend him all the same just because they're so good?
Well, it definitely does, but only after the findings come out. I mean, they're not going to axe him now, whether they hate him or not. That fan base will burn that building down, and rightfully so. He's got them undefeated. They're one of the top teams in the country. They're not axing him now. But, sometime in 2024, if he hasn't wandered off back to the NFL and they get absolutely annihilated by the NCAA, I could see them firing him next year. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this. I mean, what if they win the national title? I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, there's a lot of layers here, and especially because it's something that we've never seen before. Like we're used to, like everybody saying the SEC buys players and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The in-person scouting thing, we've never, ever really had to deal with it before that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
This was something that they almost repealed a couple of years ago. They almost allowed it a couple of years ago. They talked about it.
Yeah. I think that, again, like as expansion happens and we go into more of an NFL model and as it ends up being the SEC versus the Big Ten, I think they will repeal it because, high school coaches, they always send advanced guys to their next opponent, and and they get they watch them, and I don't know if they tape signals, but it's something where I think it is probably more widespread than we know, but like as you mentioned, like with SEC people, it's not this ham-handed and stupid. You could do this. You could do this surgically. You don't have to do it with a butcher saw like he did, and do it the most stupid way possible, and use your own name and your own credit card and your own. He's got like a paper trail that's like your own phone, texting and again like when you're seeing all
military guy. This guy's a military guy.
Oh my God!
Gee, send this guy back. Send him back to the Naval Academy and retrain him. Don't let him be in special ops.
Oh, don't let him be a spy. He'll use his real name and his real address, and he'll use his own Facebook profile to find people. But yeah, that's what's scary. Is I was like, this guy's a military guy. He's supposed to be like counterintelligence and everything that he could possibly use to be traceable. Because that's the thing that'll be interesting as they go through discovering everything. Because again, like that firm got access to all those hard drives, and whoever told him, if it was Matt Weiss who said, hey, they're doing this, and they screwed me. They threw me out in the street when I was making $2 million as the OC at Michigan. We went 13-1 or whatever they were last year, and they threw me out with the bathwater. Hey, go look in this hard drive and go to the Y folder and go to the folder that says super duper signals, and open that up, and you'll see all these. Yeah. Go to the Stallion drive.
The Stallion.
Yeah, and then you'll see
a horse on it.
It'll be the drive that says "Do not open here" or something like that. Do not click here.
Only.
Yeah, it'll have like 60 videos of every game that they've scouted, and the guys doing their little signals and everything, and then they'll have the little breakdown sheets.
That was like a separate story when Matt Weiss got fired for like illegal computer access. And that was weird. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of weird stuff.
Well, like, and the FBI's involved in that. So, I mean, that's like, right. That's something that ain't good, No,
none of this is good. None of this is good. And it's almost comical because, Michigan's always had that holier than thou attitude that they follow every rule by the book. And they always, thought Ohio State was so dirty and everything, and now like the cheatee is now the cheater, and it's like, I mean, the whole college football world's upside down anymore. It's crazy. I mean, NIL, portal, now Michigan's the cheating school. I mean, ups, down, downs, up, man. I don't know what to say anymore. Conferences are blowing up. The Pac-12's got the greatest showing they've ever had as a conference. They're done.
And they're all going to the Big Ten now.
Right. How do you figure college football anymore?
Do you now? Again, this is totally outer space. If Harbaugh gets whacked, who are the guys that you think could be candidates for the job? Is it boy Matt Campbell a candidate? Is it an NFL guy?
I don't think
Matt's not winning. He's not winning enough right now.
No, he's not the hot name that he was 3 or 4 years ago. In that business, you got to strike when the iron's hot. He didn't strike when it was hot. Now he's a little cooler. Like I say, I don't know. I mean, they like to have their guy. I mean, who would their guy be? A Michigan man. Who would that be?
I can't think of someone, because I think that's part of the reason why it's a lot harder to, like, it was easy to speculate on Brady Hoke because Jim Harbaugh was taking the 49ers to the Super Bowl, so he was he was like the Urban Meyer, like when Truss was on thin ice and Urban Meyer was working at ESPN. Everyone's like, "Ooh boy, Truss is about to get whacked, and we're gonna go get Urban, and we're gonna have the high flying offense, and we're gonna do like what he did in the SEC to the Big Ten." And like with Brady Hoke when he was on thin ice, they're like, well, Jim Harbaugh is like they're kind of their Urban Meyer, their dream coach, and they got him to come home. But I don't know, because again, like I thought Sean Moore would be the guy, but if he's in the middle of all this, and the thing that kills me is if those signal sheets where they have these signal sheets where they're printed out and it's the hand gestures and the motions were really printed off of a Michigan computer and handed to all the coaches on the sideline. That is absolutely insane, because to me, these coaching staffs turn over every year. There's always, it might not be the main guys, but like these little GAs and interns and QCs and, like Zach Smith had he had this play sheet up from Keenan Bailey where they broke down the signals, and I'm going to pull that up real quick if I can get that on here. So he had this play sheet up. So you look at it and it says Keenan Bailey, whatever. But they got that because they literally had Greg Madison in 2019 became a member of the Ohio State staff, and so did Al Washington, and so did a bunch of the. Yeah, some of the interns came. So, when you bring in guys like that, all of a sudden they're going to be like, hey, by the way, we picked all your signals, and this is one of the things that we had. And I brought it with you, Mr. Ryan Day, so you can see the stuff that Michigan does to kind of, counterattack.
Wouldn't you love to be talking to Greg Madison right now? I know Greg, and I think I introduced you to him. I mean, what a great guy. Wouldn't you love to have him on?
Well, I told him, because I played against his son. His son played at Iowa, and we're the same age. We played against each other 4 straight years, so I knew his son real well. We literally lined up against each other because they don't flop ends, like 70 plays a game in 04, 05, 06. I saw him. I saw his kid. So I told him that, his kid ended up going to the NFL for a little bit, and but I loved Greg Madison. I thought he was one of the best coaches I'd ever seen. Yeah, and he's, I thought that, a big reason why our defense fell off a cliff was because he retired. Because all of a sudden our linebackers in 21 weren't nearly as good as they were the year before, and I thought it was because we lost Greg Madison. I didn't think Al Washington could coach him. But, like with the transition and staffs, when you do this kind of stuff, Greg Madison and Al Washington have zero loyalty to Jim Harbaugh. And so the word gets out that, hey, by the way, this is what Michigan does. And the coaching community is big, but it ain't that big. And a lot of these guys are friends, and a lot of these guys will tip off each other and say, hey, by the way, TCU, they probably scouted you. They probably picked your signs. So make sure you change everything lead up to the voting. Because one thing that they absolutely.
Very smart, very intelligent.
Oh, yeah. Because the thing that's interesting is that Jim Harbaugh has not won a bowl game at Michigan yet. So, when you get a bowl game, you get 3-4 weeks to prepare for a bowl game. So you can change all the signals, all the formations, all the recognitions. You can change everything. So that adds an extra layer to the complexity. Because if you have a regular game week, you have practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you can't change everything in 4 days, you know. But when you're playing in a bowl game, you can change your entire offense in 4 weeks. You know, it's like having another training camp.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing this is going to bring about, and I think it'll bring it about for next year, is you're going to see the helmet transmitter in college football. I think this brings it in now. Saban wants it. They're all going to want it now. And it really cuts about 90% of the sign stealing out of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see the helmet transmitter voted in. The next time the NCAA takes up a rule change vote, I think this thing's coming in unanimously.
Oh,
they don't need this ever happening again. The NCAA is going to want to nip this one time, crack Michigan as hard as they can on the behind to send the message to anyone else. We want this bull crap stopped. We don't want, not because, you know, it's gone on forever, but they're not going to want to see this out in the news ever again. College football is in the midst of a great season right now, and they don't want this as the headline story.
Yeah.
So I think the helmet transmitter is coming in now.
I think that it's the most overdue thing in the history of mankind, because, you know, you've got billion-dollar TV contracts. They've never made more money in the history of college football than they do right now. There's no reason you can't put a little stupid radio in the quarterbacks and the middle linebackers' helmets. So I'm just saying, like, that is the most overdue thing in the history of football, because then it cuts out 95% of the shenanigans. You know, like. Yeah, you don't have to worry about signals anymore when you're calling a defense, and you know, you might have to signal if it's a hurry up play or something, but other than that, like, it cuts out 85% of the signals. So, you know, you could go steal it all, but it's only going to affect a small amount of the gameplay, because that's the beauty of the radio as well. Final thoughts. I know you do your Wisconsin preview on Friday on Buckeye Scoop. But any small preview you could give us tonight as to how you're leaning with this Ohio State-Wisconsin game? I think it's going to be a slobber knocker. I think our boy Luke is going to be ready to rock. This is we said he'd sell one of his 18 kids, his testicle, about his leg. And he'd be legless, crawling around on the wrestling mat to beat Ohio State this Saturday. But just a little preview. You don't have to dive too deep, because I know you got to type your article out.
Well, the first thing is they're not very good. Okay, no. They are an average football team. They're making a change offensively, trying to get to more of a spread, change into more of that Cincinnati offense from the traditional Wisconsin offense. They lost their quarterback, Tanner Mordecai. So they're not very good. Now, when we look at in the history of sports, when you look at like what people call a trap game, this one it checks all the boxes. Okay, Ohio State's coming off a huge win. Everybody telling them how great they are. Everybody telling them Wisconsin sucks, which they do. You know, Wisconsin, you know, couldn't beat Iowa, barely beat Illinois. Washington State kicked the dog out of them. But you've played up there before.
Yeah.
And that ain't no fun place to go at night unless you get off to a really, really good start. Smash them early. And then it takes the crowd out of it. It takes Wisconsin's kids out of thinking, we don't have a chance here. But you turn that ball over a couple times. And Kyle McCord has had a lot of slow starts this year, where he kind of jerks it around for a while, and then he turns into Tom Brady in the fourth quarter and plays amazing football. He doesn't want to do that this week. You don't want to give that chance, that crowd, and that team any chance of thinking that they can win this game. And if Luke is going to pull out every stop there is to win this game, if Wisconsin can get the lead, he's going to run that ball every time. That game's going to last about an hour and 40 minutes. He's going to run Braylon Allen 62 times. He's going to snap the ball with 1 second on the play clock every time. You just don't want to play from behind, play with fire like they did, you know, trailed Notre Dame until the last drive, trailed Maryland into the fourth quarter. Penn State was a 10-6 game into the fourth quarter. They don't want to do that this week. That place is a nasty place to play when that crowd gets rocking. So if Ohio State takes care of business early, knocks them out early, they can blow them out. Mm-hmm. Wisconsin's not very good. They're not going to score many points in this game. I mean, it would have to be Ohio State flopping around, turning it over, McCord off target, can't run the ball, and then you're in a 16-14 game in the fourth quarter. You got a problem at that point. But, if it's 17-3 Ohio State at the half, I mean, they're probably going to knock them out pretty good. So I think we're going to know the kind of game this is going to be. The game starts at 7:30. I think by 8:30, we're going to know, hey, this is going to be a dogfight. And then we're going to be here all night, or we're going to kill them. It's 24-3 at the half, and it's going to end up 44-3. So I think you're going to know early exactly what kind of game this is going to be. And if Kyle McCord can be fourth quarter McCord in the first quarter this week, and then I think getting Trey Henderson back is huge too.
No.
When you're handing it to Mayan, and it takes him 3 hours to get to the line of scrimmage, you're running between Mayan and Chip. They had 30 carries for 60 yards or something. But,
man.
The thing with Trey is Trey can go 80 in a blink.
Yeah.
So I think Trey, makes this O-line better than when you're blocking for Mayan. And you got to hold those blocks for 40 minutes.
Oh,
with Trey, you just need to get a sliver with Trey. You don't need to knock people on the ground with Trey. Brush him, and then he's through there. So I think just getting Henderson back in that backfield will make this O-line look better.
Yeah, I mean, there were plays I was in the stadium that were blocked up beautifully, and then gaping holes, edge plays, and Mayan Williams runs like juniors.
The one. Yeah, the edge plays are the one. Like when they throw a swing pass out to Mayan, the D coordinator can get up from his desk, take the elevator down 4 floors, walk out through the ramp, and make the play on the sideline. What are you doing? Throwing it to Mayan out in the flat. Throw it to Tyleek Williams or something, or throw it to – what are you doing? Now you throw that swing pass to Trey. Now you got the defense's attention. One missed tackle, and it's over. So I think Trey Henderson back in there will make this O-line better, and it gives you that chance where you can go 70, 80 in a blink.
Yeah.
Where with Ryan and Chip, man, you're going 70, 80 inches in a blink.
Yeah, it honestly reminds me of kind of like in 2002, and Trey and Maurice are totally different guys because Maurice was more of a horse and not a speed guy like Trey is. But when Maurice wasn't in, man, and it was Flydell Ross and Mo Hall, man, it was like a precipitous drop in production. It was like you go from the Warren Harding guy is the #1 player in the universe, 5-star, #1 player of the year, USA Today, to those other guys, man, and it is like, wow, that offensive line looks way worse now. So I totally am on board with what you're saying about that.
Yeah, I think Trey could be the real difference maker this week, just with his ability to deliver a lightning bolt from 65, where with Mayan, it takes you 10 carries to get 65 yards, 12 carries, 15 carries. Trey, man,
it takes you 65 carries to get 65 yards.
Well, it did last week.
you look like Junior Soprano running a sweep. So, all right. Well, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Bill, appreciate you, my man. Great having you on. We got a couple. All right, brother. A couple super chats to clean up here. Appreciate you guys being on. Let me get these super chats out of the way. That was Bill Greene, exclusive to BuckeyeScoop.com. David Greenshield. Punishment, you think you can see the Big Ten implementing before the NCAA? See, I think Michigan will move before either of them. I think Michigan, if this thing keeps getting worse and there's more details coming out, more stuff gets leaked, again, guys, I've seen this movie before. I've seen how it ends. I've seen Pat Fitzgerald. I've seen Jim Tressel. I've seen Mel Tucker. When the PR hit gets bad, all of a sudden, man, it is these schools, they don't play because, the schools are bigger than any one person. The program is bigger than any one person. Again, even with Urban Meyer, he resigned, but he, didn't exactly get a ton of support from Michael Drake. So again, I think it could be Michigan moving because there's a lot of people in Michigan that don't like Jim Harbaugh. And I think that winning is a great deodorant, them obviously being undefeated and, top 2-3 team in the country. It saves his job right now. They're in the middle of a season that's historic, and, they've got the looming showdowns with Penn State and Ohio State, and those things go sideways and they lose 2 of them, then all of a sudden I think you can get whacked in December if they're not going to a big bowl game. So I think there's a lot riding on this next month of the season. But with that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you to all of you new subscribers to our YouTube channel. If you enjoy this content, please hit that thumbs up. That like is huge for the video. Also, click subscribe. All of our Michigan people that are here slugging out. Thank you guys for tuning in as well. And also, comment, what do you think the punishment's going to be? Could it be the death penalty? I mean, I don't think anything's out of the question because, we'll see how deep this thing went with this cheating, because this is a big deal. I think when they see the breadth of it and the full scope of it, it's going to be very ugly for Michigan and the Blue Bellies. So also click that little alert bell so that you know when we're going live. We appreciate you guys tuning in so much, as always, every night. Shout out where you guys are watching from. I saw some people from Portsmouth down my neck of the woods. I love seeing my Portsmouth folks on here. Shout out all my Southern Ohio boys, my Massillon boys, Florida, Texas, California. You guys are all over the place watching. So shout out where you guys are watching. Put that down in the comments. And give me your score prediction. Let's see that Ohio State, Wisconsin score prediction. 7:30 Camp Randall. It'll be hopping because it's going to be Halloween weekend out in Madison. So a lot of people in costumes, and it's a spooky place to play on Halloween. So I'm excited to watch that. So that being said, as always, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. Down with the Wolverines, but it's also time to beat the Badgers. So that being said, go Bucks.